Can you just please tell us your name?
My name is Linda Adams. I've lived in Selinsgrove on or off most of my life. My parents, my dad's family came to Selinsgrove in the 1920s. My mother's family was here since 18 something or other. So I've been around the area for a long time.
Awesome. What have you brought to the harvest today?
I've brought anything from old birth and marriage certificates, advertising items, a lot of items dealing with the Selinsgrove Centennial, which was held in 1953, and a program from the Selinsgrove Fair, which used to be a big deal every summer in Selinsgrove. And I've brought some family photos. I've brought some postcards of the area, which these were all things that my mother kept, and I haven't been able to throw them away yet, so if anybody has any interest in them, I'm very happy to share them. I also brought some photographs which of my family's home. My father was a big game hunter, and I realize that that's not particularly admirable these days, but it was something that he really enjoyed, and he had a lot of trophies that he had in our home. And now his collection has gone to a museum in Mercersburg, but a lot of people came to our den to look at the animals, because at that time not a lot of people got to zoos or places like that. So these are just some pictures from our den. A lot of scout troops came, a lot of school groups came. My dad was always interested in sharing his stories and letting people know about his adventures while he was hunting in Africa, North America, Central America. So it was, I guess, somewhat unusual in the 1950s for somebody from Selinsgrove who really had never been out of the country to all of a sudden find himself hunting on safari in Africa and India and other places like that. So, as I say, I realize that that may be questionable.
Do you want to tell us about this?
Sure. This is a picture of Rudy Galnett, my mother, and myself. This was in 1990. We were at a Susquehanna event. My mother went to school with Rudy, so she knew him from a long time ago. And my brother played in a band, dance band that Rudy had in the 1950s, where my brother has very entertaining stories of how they would all pile in Rudy's 1953 Cadillac and go various places to play at dances. And I guess he should be the one that would tell those stories rather than me. I was just talking to him about it because I knew I was coming here, and so he was relating some of the stories, which were very entertaining. This is a either a birth or marriage certificate. I'm not sure, since I don't read German. The date on it is 1847. It's from my mother's side of the family. The location is Union County, because at that time Snyder County was not separate from Union County. And this also is a marriage or birth certificate that the date on this one is 1853.
And that's also from your mother's side of the family?
Yes, yes. I brought some advertising items because I thought it might be interesting just to talk about some of the old businesses that were in Selinsgrove, like Merritt Laundry, Ray and Derek's, and this one, I just liked it because it has interesting to me writing on it that says People's Hog Fair for Slop Feeding Swine, which from Selinsgrove's history, of course farming was very important in the area. These are some old deeds that came from a property that I'm now the owner. The farm is located next to where my house is at this time, and this one is dated 1846. This one is a deed from 1819 for the same property, and I particularly, if I can open it without ripping it, I particularly like the writing on it because I thought it was so interesting, and the penmanship is so beautiful. This is a picture from that same property. I think this was from about the late 1930s, 1940s. They were still farming with mules at that time, and the house that is in the background is still there, and in fact at this time Susquehanna's football coach lives there with his wife and daughter. This is a picture from the same farm where they were butchering. This is from 1965, so even as late as that, they were butchering hogs on the farm. I have some photographs of various things having to do with Selinsgrove. This is an envelope from the dedication of the Selinsgrove post office, the new post office, which was dated 1936. This is a souvenir from Selinsgrove High School, where Selinsgrove is written as two separate words, and the date on this is 1896-97. It has a list of some of the students in the high school at that time. These are some old photographs. Some of them are from the flood of 1936. This is one looking down towards the Isle of Kew, going down Pine Street, and gives you an idea of how high the water was at that time. These are some old postcards of canal boats, because at one time the canal was a very important part of Selinsgrove's history. This is just a picture of the trolley bridge that was damaged by the ice at some point. This is an old postcard. I like this because it mentions Weis store, which is now Weis Markets, and so back in 1907, somebody was talking to one of my mother's relatives about getting some shoes. This is a picture of my grandfather, who was his name was Art Jarrett. He was a telegrapher for the railroad, and this is a picture of him in his telegraph office, and this is a picture of the tower that he worked in for the railroad. I mentioned that I have some things from the centennial. My three brothers and I were in the play that the town put on at that time called Out of This Wilderness. So there's a picture of my three brothers and myself. There's another picture. of me being difficult. This is an athletic schedule of both Susquehanna University in 1930, Selinsgrove High School, and Bucknell University. That was for people's interest. My father spoke Pennsylvania Dutch. My mother spoke a little bit, but she understood more than she spoke. And there used to be, maybe there still is, I don't know. They used to have gatherings where the whole program was in Pennsylvania Dutch or Pennsylvania German. And so they had a dinner and they had a program. The program is all in German or Dutch. This one's dated 1954. This one is dated 1935. I thought this was interesting because it was a picture regarding the election of Dwight Eisenhower in 1952, and it gives an idea of the voting totals for various candidates. And big surprise, the Democrats didn't win then either, which is still quite often the case around here. I may have mentioned that the Selinsgrove Fair was a big item during the summer in Selinsgrove in the 1950s. This is a program from it. I thought this was interesting because it shows a lot of the businesses and some of the things that were happening at the fair. They would have acts on a stage. Some of it was free, some of it you had to pay to see. But some of the people that were, some of the acts that came to the fair would stay with my grandparents for the week. My grandparents had some extra rooms, so they would have some of the entertainers stay there. And so as a result of having these people, they would give my grandparents their photographs of their acts. I have lots of items from the Centennial. This was a picture of my mother and me and the lady who would be the Centennial Queen. Her name was Margie Lehman, and she lived next door to us. She's not wearing her Queen outfit there, but she was indeed the Queen. I have lots of newspapers from that time, from the local newspaper and the Sunbury newspaper. They also, in addition to the show Out of This Wilderness, some of the local people tried to continue a yearly program. This was the one that followed Out of This Wilderness. This was the Penns Creek Massacre. So they tried to get it going yearly, and it just never really quite worked out. This is an original script from the Out of This Wilderness program. And I have a lot of pictures from the Centennial. They had a big parade. They had all sorts of goings on at this time. There was the men of the community were supposed to grow beards, and they had a beard contest and judged the beards. This is an envelope from the Centennial commemorating the event, and I have some photographs of scenes from the drama play. This is a Jeep that was in the parade, and so it was, as I recall it as a child, it was a big affair in Selinsgrove. The women were supposed to wear bonnets, and they had a kangaroo court, and if you were a man, you didn't have your beard, then you'd get in trouble, and women were supposed to be wearing bonnets and things like that. So, the items that I have from the centennial include a big banner and newspapers, local newspapers, and pictures from the centennial and special commemorative editions that were made. I also have pictures I have pictures of a cradle that is supposed to be Simon Snyder's cradle. I don't have any way of proving that. I was given the cradle by Dave and Ann Wilcox Arnold. Ann's father was an attorney who had an office near the Governor Snyder mansion, and Pierce Coriel and his family lived in the mansion at that time. Pierce was an attorney, so he was a friend of Ann's father, Harry, and I think what happened was that Pierce's family did not have any children, so when Harry's family started having kids, Pierce said, "Here, take this cradle. It belonged to Simon Snyder. You have more use for it than we do." So I have some pictures of that because it's too big to drag in here, which...
Do you have it out in your car?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
If I can find my phone.
I could probably send someone out to take pictures of it too.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure. That would be great. If anybody wants it. I'm looking for a good home for it. Well, anyway. I think I've talked about mainly what I wanted to discuss.
So most of these items, were they like passed down throughout your family?
Yes, they were things that my mother kept, and even though my mother died in 2007, I'm still trying to weed my way through them and see if I can find something that should be kept or something that should be disposed of. Anyway, here's some pictures of the cradle that may or may not have belonged to Simon Snyder.
Wow.
I know that the cradle is very old. I can tell by the wooden nails that are in it and the wear and all that sort of thing. As I say, I can't prove that Simon Snyder actually used it or was in that particular cradle.
Do you have any final thoughts for the people watching this interview?
I'm really happy that you're doing this. I think it's a good way to preserve history. As I say, I think most of this stuff will probably just be destroyed after I'm gone. Probably should be destroyed before I'm gone, but it's hard for me to get rid of it when I know that it's a part of the history of the borough.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.